So, hello guys. Thanks for the invitation to come and join your business roundtable. I've been a big fan of Gabe's advocacy towards the business aspect of tattooing for, since I've encountered his work nearly a decade ago now. And has been, so I'm happy to help out in his venture and meet the community of people that he's gathered around him at the moment. So great to meet you all and looking forward to getting to know you all a little bit better. So, um, what I think I could bring to the table is I've gone into a novel line of bio, which has had, from a business perspective, it's had a lot of challenges in terms of how do you win new clients, how do you earn trust with something that's totally new, what type of language do you use, how do you keep people enthusiastic throughout. So just in terms of, it's all well and good doing free projects for your friends for the portfolio and getting that kind of stuff done, but bridging that gap and actually turning it into a viable like future business or a revenue stream. For myself, it's alongside my other day job with the roses and the skulls that we all do, and the writing. I'm happy to take on whatever my community wants, but there is a business aspect to deal with when it comes to doing the stuff that is more of a passion project where we feel like we're adding some kind of novelty to tattooing, right? Which nourishes the soul, nourishes those deeper parts of our creative kind of drive. Yeah, without further ado, I've got a presentation to just kind of guide you through a little bit of my path and how I've kind of got to the style that I did, and maybe there's a few little nuggets along the way which might be helpful if you are trying to branch out into something new and trying to create a bit of a business around something like that. So let's get into it now. So first of all, I'm an artist from South Wales. This is a Barry town. So in the background here, you see these towers. This is Dow Corning. So this is a chemical facility that was pre Second World War, and is responsible for producing the napalm that was taken out to Vietnam. And but on the other hand of that horror, my great grandfather worked there and supported his six daughters, obviously, and I'm from that lineage. So we have this very strange kind of heavy old industrial kind of history. It was once the largest coal exporting port in the world, and as a result attracted a lot of characters. We had a red light district called Thompson Street, with one of the first female tattooers in the UK, Jessie Knight, who tattooed my grandfather when he was 16 years old when she was 80. Right, so she was the daughter of a Wild West gunslinger who ended up being part of the circus, and then she learned from all the tattooers on the circus and learned the trade there. So she settled down in Barry, and that's kind of our old Barry history there. So this is my walk to work. So as you go down this street to the bottom, you find, I opened this shop then in 2012, something like that. So this is my first convention about a decade ago, and I was doing whatever I could. This guy Simon Head, he's an old school West Wales tattooist who I just love him. He's a good egg. So that was my introduction to the convention scene, and I'm sure most of you know that they're transformational events that can really give us a kick up the arse. And from this point onwards, I think was when I really took the idea of my own visual language seriously. What did I want to bring to the table rather than just, regurgitating what everybody else was doing? So not long after that, I headed out to Amsterdam. This is 2014. And these little truffles here, during that experience, I took 15 grams of truffles. And my intention, I was going through some personal stuff, and I'd heard about the mental health benefits from going in with psilocybin. And also my favorite artists outside of tattooing were Jonathan Salter, the guys from Thrader that did a lot of the visionary work there. So Seth MacMahon, these guys that were all part of that Bay Area kind of art collective, as well as, the bio artists that I love, McMaster Mike, Guy, all of those guys that found their own novel language. So rather than iterating over and over and just being a copycat artist, I wanted to go to source, right? And I saw these as a way of getting in. Now, I kind of went in wanting to see something to bring back, and I never quite found that. So in here, you can see this little blue, it was on a sketch paper pad, like a tracing paper. And I had an auditory hallucination, right? So it was very much a case of being very, very loose with the drawing. And then whenever I would kind of get too involved, it would knot up. So I just flipped the page. And I went through the whole tracing paper pad and I closed it. And then through backwards, I saw a rhythm to it. There was a harmony between the lines. And it was like, there's something there that, like, when you just let go, that something comes through you. And it was like an order that I couldn't have planned. Um, at the same time, I had this intuition that Matt Driscoll, Raptor Laser, that he'd been on mushrooms, and a couple of years later, I actually visited the guy and was like, "Do you do mushroom? Like, is that part of your practice?" And he was like, "Yeah, man. It was just like so I'd had this intuition back then, and was like, I'm gonna find out. Is that in his work? Is there a curve that kind of comes through?" So I was fascinated by that, and it was enough that it kind of sparked my interest to carry on. So after Amsterdam, I did this, and it was, you know, I drew this for somebody else, and he pulled out last minute, and then somebody came in 3 days later. He traveled down from London on a visit anyway, and we managed to do this tattoo against a bunch of odds. So that was my first kind of galaxy background kind of piece. And then I did my first tattoo convention, and it was a case of I took my partner up. We were kind of new, fresh in a relationship, and this is the tattoo we did together. And it was just one of those things that I like doing black and gray. I really did enjoy doing the color from the Galaxy on the other one. And, I picked up maybe Logan Barracuda, or, when Matt Driscoll had done some of these kind of clear outlines around the outside edge to give it a bit of space. So I kind of iterated for a couple of years then on these things that I called Space Banger. I didn't want to just rely on Hubble Nebula, so I picked up the Copic markers and was really kind of exploring how I could, create something novel of my own rather than just, pasting stuff in. And so you can see it went through a few different iterations, right? I'd find different ways of kind of sneaking it into other people's ideas. These are guys that, had been my long-time regulars who were like, I want a little bit of that, Joe, but also can I have the Great Atuan from Discworld? Or, when I started incorporating a type of organic bio language that started coming through. After winning a couple of small color awards, it was an encouragement to just kind of follow this a little bit further until it started breaking outside of these little frames. And I was like, I think you can kind of see it here a little bit, but then it kind of went to this, and that was a poster painting on a piece of cardboard. And then I went to study at the Academy of Visionary Art in Vienna. So Amanda Sage, my teacher here, and Lawrence Caruana, both established visionary artists in the lineage of the fantastic realists. So Ernst Fuchs was her teacher for a decade, and they all painted a cathedral in Klagenfurt in Austria, which is like the Apocalypse Chapel. I advise anybody to check it out. It's incredible. It's just painted by these visionary trippers for about 10 years, and it's just wild to see. So this was kind of our alumni at the time. We spent 3 months together, and it was just one of these transformational things where you just kind of really learn some techniques. So this was my painting there. There was a little bit of this kind of organic kind of shape in the background that kind of carried through, but then it was actually learning how to hold a brush properly and just developing painter techniques, which is what I wanted to really develop my visual language in that way. So, and you can kind of see the interplay then over the following years. So this was probably a year after Vienna, and then that turned into this style of the work, and from the same era, something a little bit like this. There's a similarity in the way that, like, there's these kind of connective areas which with a gradient going through the background. So I was really enjoying creating volume just through value. Then but Stu, and like tying it into the business aspect of this guy here has been with me for 12 years now. So I've built a relationship of trust up. I didn't really go out and search for people straight off the bat, have what I want, have this thing. It was like I was putting it out there. I was doing these little ones, and slowly but surely my longtime regulars would give me a little bit more trust. And I look after this guy. He's going to be on one of my best mates rates forever and ever until the day I die, because of how much he's given me. You can actually see he actually started with a new iteration of my work, and the relationship continues. Now it's going to end up all down his leg, and he'll probably be my first bodysuit by the time I'm done. He's just a diamond guy, and just loves the idea of becoming a piece of novelty, right? So And through these conversations with this guy, we're able to really hone in on like what it is that we're doing here. So as well as developing a visual language, I was thinking about what it is that I could captivate new clients with. What is it that's different about this stuff? And taking away the human meaning making for me was really interesting. When we are, you know, focusing just on the materials, like the amazing pigments that we get to use, the amazing techniques that we have, this lineage of knowledge, and then when it interacts with the body in these interesting ways that bio does, for me, that became a transcendent kind of purpose that's outside of the human meaning making. And it's just a gift to the idea of novelty in the wider scheme of things. And that actually draws a certain type of client, right? So there are certain type of people that like are happy to surrender that to just become something different. And so those were the type of people that I wanted. So I ended up bringing a little bit of the galaxy type stuff in. And at this point, I can just freehand it all in because I'd been drawing it for a good while, but incorporating it with these interesting kind of design elements just to kind of bridge things together. Where we are in Wales, everyone's pretty pasty, the indigenous people from here. So we get to put some of these bright colors in, and all of these kind of blues down here are well healed for over a year. I was just so lucky with Sam, and allows me to play with color palettes that I wouldn't be able to do in other areas, I guess. So the next thing I think was really formational was having a space that I could really hone in, and just develop, an area that you can like put yourself away from everything. And I visited Massachusetts. I'd gone and worked in the shop there off the map. And I felt like a junior, right? I really felt like I got on with everyone. I had a great experience, got on with all the artists there, but I really felt like I wasn't adding anything to the conversation. So this is where I just really wanted to get into it. And these kind of shapes were interesting, but there wasn't that much in the way of like an even composition. It was kind of unbalanced or a little bit scraggly at times, as you can see in this one at the top. So I started painting bottles, and I love the interaction in a similar way to bio, where you can kind of use these like the curves of the bottle to explore with your visual language. And I would use, I really got into the idea of your brushes being part of the sacred equipment, right? The fact that in every brush stroke that you have, there is this novelty from how much your brush has been abused, or you get all these like little streaks of brush geometries that kind of speak of each of your tools as well. So like that was another thing that I could then bring to my clients and as part of the novelty and speak to. So it just kind of continued to evolve then. And then in 2017 I started putting like these types of sleeves together. And during lockdown, it was a case of, okay, let's evolve these. So these had been done in 2015. And then, during lockdown, it got a little bit crazier. So during lockdown, we opened a bigger shop. I got 3 other artists to work with me, and it freed my time up a lot. So that's, when it came to being able to offer clients like these multi-layered projects, which are going to take a lot of time, having other artists in the shop to kind of take the pressure off, made it more viable while I kind of pursued my own novel expression. The shop itself is now, it's covered with this huge kind of rainbow gradient of biopsychedelic kind of patterns. And that was kind of the language that I was speaking at the time. And I painted it onto my partner, and she had the first kind of sleeve in that style. So there's more layers onto that at the moment as well. But that was kind of oh, we did it. We came up with that project in 2017, and we finally came off. And then I did this collaboration with a friend of mine who's part of an online painting community called the Vision Train. So my painting teacher from Vienna, Amanda, had started a 24/7 Zoom call that's actually on its 4th anniversary this week. And one of the artists there, a fellow Celt, Sani, does these beautiful mandalas. And this sat on my wall for a good while after we painted. And it inspired all of this, so I was kind of bringing in all of the type of patterns that we did through, Polynesian type stuff in my first years. I've been tattooing 17 years. I think the first 5, there was like a lot of faux Polynesian stylings, and I always enjoyed doing freehand, and I found that the armatures caused by like the brush strokes in the early stages give this kind of it's almost like a grid that you can kind of work to then, between the striations of the bristles. So the painting itself would unfold in its own way, and I love the spontaneity of that. So then it was a case of trying to bring that back to tattooing. And so this was last year. This is where I'd started doing multiple days consecutively. So I finished this in 6 weeks. It was the full sleeve. I didn't get a photo of the bottom yet for the healed one, but the it was just a double dayer. 1 week, 2 weeks later another double dayer, and then another one, and one more. And I think it's seven sessions. So really being able to kind of narrow it down and just create full sleeves full of detail like this was just like, okay, I can make this a lot more viable. And offering a decent double day rate was much more possible. So I don't know if you can see the red one there, that's the stencil there. And this is about getting the brushes out and painting directly into the skin, where I'd done so much on the canvas. Then I was able to kind of translate it over and make sure that the visual language was true to the canvas as much as possible then. So yeah, this was a breakthrough for me. My cousin had one. It was my first family member that got involved in my weird language, so it felt like I was really kind of, this is going to be something that could probably be a little bit more than just like for those few people. And now I'm glad to say we've got up to maybe 18 or 19 different projects on the go, full sleeves and bodysuits and things like that. So it's really started to take a life of its own. And then last year I did this one at a guest spot, and while I was there, I got encouraged once more to really like, okay, I've gone back to the space bangers again. This was kind of very similar to the old format, and it felt like the end of a 10-year cycle almost. So, and off we go. There's actually a lot of white lining through here as well. Pardon me, just turn that off. Here we go. And like really working, seeing a lot more white line work in other projects. I was bringing that in and building this kind of multi-layered approach to it. But again, showing people the results and being able to have those early projects where you've kind of earned that trust so that you can put it in and just experiment and just, it's so important to be able to document stuff that's well healed. All of this is healed. It's a shame I can't get in a little bit closer to that, but I'll post something online for you to have a little look at after if you want. And then there's this year. So this is the most recent iteration, and where kind of I'm at now, and I've just started working with these the 3D modeling. Some of this is hand drawn, and then some of it I've used Ant from Ascension's his Technomech brushes, which are incredible. If they're pressure sensitive in just the right way, I find, and actually using those as a basis for making your own brushes, if you use the settings and just change the stamp itself, you can, like, they're just wonderful for that as well. But yeah, just to say that I've booked one of these in, and I've just booked one of these in as well. So it's coming round, and like, it's after a decade, I'm finally able to start charging like the proper, I'm not just hobbling myself because it's my passion project now. I really am finding the people that are keen to take that forward. So that's my style in a nutshell and how it's come. And I didn't want to kind of dwell on it too much. I'm happy to answer any questions about the business aspect of it that I might have glossed over. But here I am, Joe Phillips. Thanks for watching.
A huge fan of your work. That was great.
Thank you so much. I'm it's a tattooing is one of those things that I'm sure, as many of you will agree, it's transformational, right? And being able to have come from somebody that didn't really have a means of supporting myself. I'd left home a week after my 16th birthday, and it provided a life beyond what I could have expected. I was fortunate in a way. I grew up around an old school biker tattooist at the age of 10. So he used to give me carbon paper to play with, and I had all that. And then, but I'd always put it on a pedestal. I'll never be good at that, you know. And then I had my first one done, and I saw that he used a stencil, and I was like, "What? You just trace around that?" You know, I didn't really, I hadn't seen one being done. So, um, like from there, I just knew that was my way. So, yeah.
Did I miss? Sorry, the weather got a little wonky on me. Um, like for the sake of we could edit anything we need to. Like, how does it work with being official over there? Like over here, we were just talking about taxes, and in some ways, like if you're going to try to make waves, you're going to get seen and audited. So you have to kind of do the at least the Lando Calrissian route of like dealing with the Empire as much as you need to. I guess my question is like, when you're making some of these moves, I don't know if you talked about purchasing a building or not, but how do you deal with like going from an underground to being visible over there?
Yeah, so I'm able to talk a lot more to my psychedelic use now as I've recently gone abstinent. So that's one thing in terms of that. The other thing in terms of providing for, when I offer a discount with my guys, I actually charge them the normal rate, but then we have a marketing budget every year. So I write off in taxes the difference in the value of what those sessions are. And that way, and it's legit, I'm using them to promote. I'm using them right now in this conversation, to raise my
Yep.
profile, and that's all legit, right? So being able to kind of leverage um, what we do there in that way and see it through the lens of it being a marketing tool and a promotional tool can, I'm not trying to pull a fast one over anyone, but you see corporate businesses, they write off trips to tree climbing. So I can write off doing work to for people that are really passionate and who want to help me further a portfolio in the art style.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, we've recently actually signed on the dotted line for the shop. So that's and I've set up for the next 30 years now. I'm settled in, and it's
Awesome.
it's a big weight off our mind, having that stable base. I think I want to put another couple of years into building out the back area. There's a 2-story workshop, so I want to build an art project, which is going to have a dormer for international artists and have small scale manufacturing there and able to distribute for other artists in the UK. So I don't know if any of you have got people that buy your art in the UK, but every time something gets sent over, there's a big tax that gets hiked onto any UK buyer, right? So being able to have an offsite manufacturing that is trustworthy, I'm able to, I can print G-clay, I can do laser, we've got CNC there, and we're able to kind of fulfill in the mainland here so that your customers don't have to pay that extra tax as well. So it's obviously if people have got their own and that's just part of what they offer, then that's fair enough. But it just seemed, as I'm networked with this international group of visionary artists, I saw that there would be a value for something like that as an offsite offshore kind of manufacturing that was trustworthy. So I'm working on that. We're a couple of years away from having it really up to top notch, and I want to make sure that the quality that we put out is well tested and on the way first. But that's the future anyway.
Awesome. Hey, one more question before while I'm here and I can still have a connection. And I know I'm kind of springing this on you, but do you have any sort of like habits or something that you could do, like any sort of compounding effects that have done you well over course of 5 or 10 years or over time? I'm fascinated with compounding effects.
So in terms of what my own art practice or like how I think about business, so I, not to blow smoke up your ass, but that you mentioned before during your seminar doing 5 hours a week, and sometimes it's been 5, sometimes it's been 20 hours a week, but it's been a minimum of 5 hours since I saw that seminar. Always to try and push something new, always to try and feed creativity in a way that is generative, that doesn't allow me to be lazy, and just keeps the enthusiasm up there. If I'm complacent with the tattoo styles that I'm working with, then maybe I'll work in a different style. Actually going to bio, which was just about creativity and just about being in the moment with whatever brushes I've got, was a good break from the regimen of tattooing, right? So feeding your creative soul outside of tattooing has been a great source of like for my longevity, you know, and it also takes the burden off of my clients to have to satisfy that need, you know. Yeah, definitely vital for me over the years. It's been super helpful, and you know, sometimes that'll also be just planning conventions as well, and planning like what I'm going to do over the next year. You know, I did London last year, and it was you know, it wasn't one of Mickey's shows, unfortunately. I never made Mickey's London show, which would have been incredible, but the London Tattoo Convention that was run by the Total Tattoo team still had a great plethora of UK artists, and it was you know, meeting new clients there, being in such a big city, being able to take my work to that place. You know, I wanted to be well prepared, so you know, for the couple of weeks before that, I think my 5 to 10 hours a week were like, okay, how can I get my convention setup looking? Can I make it look good? How can I paint a guitar? Let's paint a guitar that'll like draw people in, and you know, do these kind of outside of the box things that not every other stall is going to have, you know, like be able to build my desk up so that it kind of has different levels of merchandising, right? Something that is down on the bottom, you know, and I had like a treasure chest that I could then put things on as well. So building, so there was more of an environment as people would come up to the desk of a whole different type of things, which were interesting to see anyway, which then just engendered some conversation. The I'm not sure if Gabe has shared this yet, but maybe I can open screen share again for a short while. Let me get this up.
So we're going to show off the PDF?
Yeah, that's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely. This is impressive.
So, you know, I think actually I got put onto this during my trip to America, where I made some flyers, and it was like, make your own space banger, right? Pick your own key object, which is the black and gray thing, you know, like I showed you in my first early stuff, and then pick your color scheme, and we'll kind of make yours up together, you know. So it kind of allowed people to have a much more hands-on approach just through this flyer, and it was very effective at like helping me engage new customers. So there we go. I've got that one ready. Let me just screen share again. So, and this was super helpful for when I was at the convention, being able to, can everyone see that?
Yeah.
So being able to, you know, you can't always speak to everybody, you know, you're speaking to 100, 150, 200 people a day there. So being able to reference, you know, some of what I've just showed you now. Actually, this was only I made 34 of these, and they were only to be given to people that were deadly serious, right? And one of the things I quite liked was this pioneers credit, you know, this thing of being able to, let me just put this to the side a second. At the bottom here, it's pioneers £25 gifted towards every full day session of biopsychedelic tattooing in perpetuity, you know. And it was like, as long as it's work like this, that's I'll take that 25, and then I'll write that off as, you know, a promotional object. So a little bit about the studio and something that was a bit more hands-on there. So, and then it was, you know, just a couple of pages of portfolio of some of my favorite snapshots of my pieces, and then the evolution of my work, what I've kind of just loosely gone through with you there, so people can see that, you know, I'm serious about this, and you know, and I why I got into, you know, psychedelics, and what it meant to me to find a novel language, and then describing the process. You know, you send in your photos of your arm in this way, 4 separate sections, and then I'll do a giclée painting over the top of that. And because, you know, it was new for me, I kind of wanted to do a lot of prep beforehand, especially if I was going to be painting directly onto the body. You know, I'll keep this next to me by the side so that when it comes to getting the brushes out, I've got something to inform what I'm doing ahead of time. So, you know, if people are coming in and it's just, you know, looks like I'm being overly casual, I just didn't want that. I wanted people to really feel that I was taking their project seriously, and I still do this, and I'm doing this for the next few that I've got starting very soon. So I stand by that. I think it gives you an opportunity to iterate without as much pressure. It can get a little bit more stale when it comes to the tattooing, and what I'll tend to do is just pick out sections of this. But you know, and one of the things I love about these organic bio kind of pieces is that, you know, there's a cover up in the middle here, and you can kind of use the cover up to inform the rest of the flow of it. And being able to have a style that is very cover up friendly as well allowed me to, you know, pitch this to people that are fed up with what they've got as well, and help them believe that no matter what you have, you know, you can kind of include their tattoo history with this tattoo, and allow them to, you know, bring something totally new to the table. And then, you know, a little bit of an insight into this. At the time, I hadn't done much more than this on my buddy Stu. This is the guy with the full back piece with the tree. So, and then, you know, I'll do the digital sketch, and then between each session, you know, I'll take photos of what was there before, and then I'll plan out digitally what I'm going to do for the next stage. So before every session, you know, I'm still doing 2 to 3 hours of prep in the way that I would if I was doing any other you know, large scale tattoo that day. So we'll come in then, have 7 hours, and we'll be well prepared then. So, you know, some color inspiration, you know, just some ideas of like little ones that I've kind of whipped up. And, you know, I like using these colors, you know, the colors themselves became an inspiration. You know, there's a Dermaglow plum, right, which is an incredible color. And, you know, the olive that they do as well. Like, so, and it was like, what can I do that is based around my favorite colors to use, you know? And, you know, I ended up doing this on the leg, and some people have gone, I want exactly this one, you know, and this was what Stu ended up wanting. We went a bit darker because his skin tone's a little bit darker than all these super pale colors, but you know, we adapted it. And then there's
And now, did you printed these out? You said you printed out like 30 of them or 40 of them?
Yeah, I was 34, so I just printed out 34. You know, it was one of those kind of, I like my numbers to kind of be synchronous to where I'm at in my development. You know, and I found that it stopped me being wasteful. It wasn't some, you know, and it kept them special. I kept one on the table to just show people as they were going through, you know. And if people like, you know, I'm really serious, I'll come to South Wales. And South Wales, the cost of living is very different to London, right? People are prepared to pay £700 a day session there. So, and in South Wales, that's what it'd cost for 2 days. So you can
Sure.
come down to South Wales and have twice the tattoo. You know, I don't take quite as much of a hit anymore now that I feel like I've earned a little bit more of that now. But for the amount of work that I do, but I felt that was appropriate at the time. So, but yeah, that was the book.
Awesome. And now, just to kind of wrap up in a nutshell, is there any tattoo shops or clients that are interested in having you show up or getting tattooed? What are the best ways to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you know, via my Instagram is fine. You know, I'll try and keep on top of my DMs, but I'll put my my email in the chat, joescustomtattoo@gmail.com. It's a bit of a clunky name, but it's, you know, I've always had this picking band names, you know, like it's what you stick to, right? My first shop was called Joe's Custom Tattoo Studio, which is where my email address, where everything came from. You know, like Linkin Park, it's a crap name, but you know, the band made the name, right? So I figured if I just stick it out and get good enough, then I'll be, you know, the name will be worth something. Yeah. So, but yeah, thank you so much.
You know, you kind of almost have to live into the brand or create the brand.
Yeah, and you know what? My work's got more custom over the years, so it's quite nice. Like, I'm finally living up to it a little bit, but it's yeah, I feel so privileged to be able to offer a new language, a bio, and be part of the conversation about, you know, what that even means. You know, it's such an emergent art form, really, in the scale of, you know, ever. Like, since how long have we had these types of pigments, and how long have we been able to think in terms of novelty theory, and then actual psychedelic artists that were overt bringing something back. You know, I feel like we're on a bit of a crest of a wave here, and I'm so excited to see a whole generation of people that are incorporating their psychedelic art practice into tattooing, and bringing new languages forward, you know. So yeah, I think there's more to come.
Did you get any like how much pushback did you get from being? Well, I guess you said maybe you weren't quite as open about the psychedelics, but like Was that something that like shook out anybody and made sure that you were getting a dedicated and focused clientele, or did you get shit for that, or?
To be honest, the type of people that came by were usually already on board. It was
Sure.
like the work and the sense, like, you know, there's a certain balance that you notice after going into psychedelics, I think. And so, but you know, I'll still stand behind it. You know, I even when I had been using it as an art practice, it wasn't always around my house. It'd be a couple of times a year, maybe in a way that was very intentional. I've never really been a glutton, you know. So it's a case of, you know, I'll stand behind that, you know, especially with all the evidence that's been coming out in terms of how it's helped with mental health. You know, it made me feel a little bit more comfortable to talk about these things. It's gone the other way now since I've become abstinent, that I want to be more of an advocate about the creative use of psychedelics, because as things are getting legislated for the therapeutic use, the creative use is still being left out, despite, you know, how we all know that psychedelics have had an impact on music, art, you know, and culture in general. So I think it's, you know, I feel called to that. I feel a bit of a responsibility to my experience to start being more of an advocate in that way. So.
Well, it's a funny to make this bet. I'm not necessarily a full fan, but we'll see. I guess Elon's talking about how his drug use is good for shareholders, you know. And in America, you know, that's the fucking golden rule. You know, if it's good for shareholders, so it'll, you know, we might even see that one in court someday. Lordy.
Yeah. You know, I think we've got to step with care, and this is one of the things I want to do is develop safe frameworks, right? So that artists can stand up and say, you know, we've got safe protocols that are tried and tested that are very similar to the protocols that therapists use, and in order to provide safe environments and a safe community integration point, you know, and that's something that I take seriously. And so at the moment, I've been speaking to a lot of other artists who have found their way through the psychedelics, and you know, how can we put together almost like a collective effort and a collective kind of you know, presenting of ourselves that legitimizes us in a way that looks that we're taking, you know, the harm seriously, you know, and you know, it's not to glamorize these things, but it's to speak to the truth of our experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. Yeah, like, you know, I could talk about psychedelics all day. So, you know, I was very much a wreck for most of my life, and you know, I never lived in a house longer than 2 years ever, from growing up until about 7 years ago, and then I stayed put. That photo of the studio that I showed you before is the same studio I'm in now, and it's the longest place I've ever been in one place. And the shop I've got is, I've been on the same street for 12 years now. And the stability that I found as a result of just looking myself in the eye and under those with that frame of mind, and just really setting intentions to just become more stable, you know, it was powerful for me. And yeah.
Time to unmute, folks.
I'm open to any other questions if anybody wants to pipe in.
I had a question about your process. I love it. Thank you for everything you presented. It's man, I love learning. It's just been so great to meet so many people, and especially you being in a different country. I'm in the US, so sure, different kind of tattooing. But okay, so you paint on your customers. So what's your process as far as not losing your stencil, not losing that, or just curious.
Yeah, so the one that I did on my partner that I showed before with the paint on, and the one after, I color line the whole thing because I've pre-planned how I'm going to go with the gradient beforehand, and I don't use anything darker than like a light mid-tone, right? So you know, in a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the darkest, you know, I'll color line everything at about a 4. That way, if there are any changes as it evolves, then, you know, it leaves us with a little bit of leeway. I've never really hue shifting too far, so it's not ever been a problem. But that was a way, you know, I thought the same, and trying to actually capture that looseness of the brush stroke, even though you've got line work everywhere. You know, I'm using a tight 3 liner, and I'm just, you know, whipping them in confidently, you know, like because I know I'm color packing the whole thing. I don't need to be overly precious about making every line super crispy. It's more about putting it there. You know, not to be shoddy, don't get me wrong. I'm not, but at the same time, you know, I'm not trying to put anything that's like a nice consistent 7 or, you know, which will slow me down a little bit more, or 9 or something, you know. So and once that's there, then, you know, I'll take photos of this, of what I've done, including, you know, you'll be able to see the color gradient in the lines. So as I'm reworking that, then I can recolor that image again, ready for the next session. And then I'll kind of square away, okay, well, that's a day's work now. And I'll refine that out. And so it goes from being the painting onto the arm, color lined on the arm, and then I take photos of that and create another color plan then on the whole sleeve, accurate to what was painted on that session. So there's a direct correspondence to what I've put there.
Cool. Thank you. It sounds very organized. So it looks like it has to be. Yeah, right.
It's one of these, you know, you're making brush strokes that look so organic and loose with a medium that is super intentional. And I'm sure others who do watercolor styles will understand like the, you know, the challenges with that sometimes. Like, you know, doing it on single pieces is all well and good, but yeah, trying to do that over a whole sleeve was really something I had to kind of work up to. So yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, James, thanks. Thanks.
You know, it's kind of amazing, you know, when you were showing off some of those small space bangers, I was like, wait a minute, you know, that was the era that I think that we first became aware of you, or aware of each other. And it's funny in my head how it's like, you know, the progression of the work, you know, obviously it's like the universe is different, right? But it made, you know, it made sense. But I didn't forget those space bangers. As soon as you showed them, I was like, oh shit, I remember those. But like, I don't know, it's amazing how, you know, when you started doing that and you could see the glimpses of the worlds that you were creating.
Yeah.
And, you know, now flash forward 10 years and yeah, it's awesome to see you creating, you know, even bigger.
It means so much that, you know, that it made a mark back then, right? I was just a kid. I thought I knew so much. I thought I was really onto something back then. I think I was maybe 7 years in, you know, and you know, thinking I was, you know, I've never had a problem with humility. You know, I was always brought down a peg or two when I was younger, so I wasn't like that. But you know, I really thought I knew enough. And then you know, going to Off the Map and going to the Venetian Tattoo Gathering and seeing some of, like, you know, the work at the big shows, it was just like, oh, I've got a way to go yet, you know. And I still feel like I'm on the way, but you know, hopefully I'll be back in October now. I'd love to try and get up to Paradise this year and come and hang out and do some of these projects over there.
We'll definitely try to get some of the, you know, get some bio university psychedelic clients, and Paradise is a great place for that. There is also rumors of another Venetian show.
Well,
so
count me in.
A little bit, absolutely. You know, first, I don't want to blast too much, and by the time the recording comes out, we'll have probably announced it. But it's not going to necessarily be a small Venetian palace like before, but it is going to be. I love that place. This is one of my favorite.
Yeah.
It's stupid to say, but I still say it. Like, I feel like I'm in a Star Trek episode, and I'm not in a Star Trek episode. My whole Game of Thrones episode. No, I'm like in 1,000 years. It's all.
Yeah. No, it was so special. It didn't feel real, you know. I came off the back of a 14-day road trip as well, and you know, having seminars from Jeff Gogway teaching us how to, you know, how to keep clients motivated, like that was super helpful for me in terms of you know, like there was the question, how do you do these like next level bodysuit pieces? And he just said, well, you're probably tattooing those guys already, you know. And I was like, oh, right, okay, rather than always looking outward, like look inward to who is there, and nurture those relationships, and I'm lucky that I look after my guys anyway. I never really wanted to put it on them to have my stuff, because I'm serving them, and so that was a shift to give me permission into being like, what do you think of this then, guys, and so that was super transformational, and just one tidbit from the whole convention. So yeah, James, did you have a question before?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Joe, for your presentation. It was really great getting to watch the progression. Um, my question was about your experience at the Academy for the Visionary Arts, and how was that like? How did you balance tattooing? Were you tattooing while you were going there, and uh, how long was your program? These sorts of
Yeah.
questions. Thanks.
So it was a 3-month program. I think the academy ran for about 7 years, and Lawrence Caruana, and the other alumni of teachers, they were all part of a network of Ernst Fuchs, from the Fantastic Realists, right? So you'd have these other kind of Android Jones, so they'd have these like super transformational kind of visionary artists that would go there and just teach for a 5-month period. So I was there with Jonathan Salter and Amanda Sage, and Jonathan Salter was already one of my favorite artists anyway. I didn't even know Amanda at the time, but she ended up becoming this super powerful like force in my life, in terms of using your art as action. Now, when it came to work there, I did work on weekends. I worked every Sunday. I had a full day. I was fortunate enough that I had, apart from maybe 3 or 4 clients, one guy that wanted a sleeve for the whole thing, and I did maybe 60 hours on him, and it was just like, oh. And it was all bio, a type of organic bio that I'd only really picked up by doing 2 or 3 years of a weekly drawing night with 2 other artists, where one of those was a sick bio artist. So I was like, if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have ever had the tools to be able to support myself while I was there. So, I was very fortunate that, I paid all of my accommodation ahead of time. I was due to go to the States actually, but, there was a few issues with money, and so I had this £2,000 lump. The course cost 3.5 grand for 3 months, and to be able to just say, there we are, there's most of it gone, and I just kind of saved up and just kind of put it aside. And so I was only really tattooing for my food and my tram and that kind of stuff. I had a week off. I came back and did a tattoo convention in the week off. I did a tattoo tea party, and that was like surreal, from being in Vienna, like in the snow, and then flying back home. And there are these moments where you're like, people wouldn't believe my life right now if I told people, and it was just like, I I've enjoyed traveling, anyway, but actually being tested of your comfort zone, which it was, um and yeah, I just had to make it happen. I felt like I needed to break through a barrier in terms of my technical ability with painting, and so I learned to glaze actually. So the Mish technique that Ernst Fuchs is famous for, he was developing almost digital looking paintings with oil paint, long before like I ever knew that was possible, right? So painting with like egg tempera, underneath layers of oil based washes, um, and also with Jonathan, then I was using acrylics in the same way. So using the gold and fluid acrylics as to glaze with there. And yeah, and being around 20 other people that have also gone on a similar quest. Half of those were American. There's this kind of sense of you're all in this tribe together to kind of get through. And so yeah, if you get a chance to go on an art retreat like that with other people that are, as an adult learner that is spending that much money to go out of your own way when you've got a shop waiting for you, we were regularly there painting till 11 o'clock at night, and we're back in at 10 the next morning, and it was just like, we're here for a reason, so yeah. If you ever get a chance, I highly recommend it. Nice one. Okay. thanks for hearing me out. And Kenneth, thanks so much for your kind words earlier and for keeping an eye on my work for a while. And yeah, it's I'm looking forward to and for your questions, James and Steve. Really look and Gabe, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Hey, it's been we're going a little bit long, which is great, but let's wrap this up and catch up over the computers. So everyone knows how to find each other, right? Maybe if you want to put your Instagram in the chat room, although maybe it's kind of late for that. But yeah. Unless anybody has anything else to say, we can wrap it up.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you guys. That was really cool to hear.
So much.
Yeah, I appreciate all you guys. Definitely absorbed a lot of stuff. I love this every week. This is really good. Definitely thank you for that presentation. And hopefully one day I'll be able to meet you. That'd be awesome.
Hell yeah. Come on, October. I'm aiming for it. I'm actually saving up right now. I'm going to get the visa process up and running in the next few weeks. So fingers crossed.
So did you say you're going for a visa?
Yeah, that's it.
If you could definitely connect if you need any help with producing evidence.
That's a great offer. Thank you so much, and I may well take you up on that. Thank you.
Yeah, we're good. Like things like this, we can post it up. We can post up news items so that when immigration is doing a search online, it says Joe has never been working illegally in America. He's only been doing awesome stuff around the world, and he's and then we can list off the pieces of evidence that you're looking for.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Gabe.
Awesome. Cool. Well, cheers. I'm gonna boogie everybody. We'll talk soon.
Take care. Try, guys.
Bye, guys.
I'm gonna try to boogie. Somebody else could.